Howdy folks, today we're going to work on the well, I'm calling it the Mermazing album. Not sure what the final title is going to end up being, so we're just going to go with Mermazing. And we're going to start with constructing the cover. I'm not going to do much prep work at all for this album. I'm just going to kind of go with the flow and see where we end up. This is going to be a 5x5 album. I have already cut the chipboard pieces. It's also going to be a wraparound album. I decided to go with 5x5 because I've only got the collection from Echo Park and I wanted to see how far I could get. So let's start with the chipboard measurements. The front and back cover are both 5x5. The left spine is 2.5 inches by 5 and the right spine is 2 5/8 by 5. I put an extra 1/8 of an inch on this because it's gonna kind of wrap around and lay on top of the front cover. Now I know that one piece of 8.5 by 11 is not gonna be long enough for all of this, so we're going to attach two pieces together. It should be long enough. So let's get the right spine over here. One cover piece. The left spine. And the cover, yeah, that's gonna be good. I'm gonna scooch this over this way. And the layout's actually gonna look a little bit more like this because I don't want this seam to be on the spine if I can help it. I'm gonna put the seam on the back cover. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to use double-sided tape to glue these two pieces together and then attach the chipboard pieces and wrap everything around. So I'm gonna put y'all on fast forward for a little bit. I've finished attaching the double-sided tape to all the pieces on both sides. I went all the way around all the edges. This time on the Life is Better with a Dog album, I ran into a problem. I forgot to put double-sided tape around the long sides on the inside of the album, and it caused some bubbling when I was flexing the album in order to get it to hold its shape. So I'm going to make sure and not have that problem this time. And I'm going to use a straight edge. This is going to be the bottom of the album since we've got different measurements for the two different spines. One side is definitely the top and the other side is definitely the bottom. And it's the bottom that we want to make sure sits pretty flat. So we want to make sure everything is aligned. Now, because I didn't cut all these pieces at the same time, there might be some subtle differences in the height along the top edge, and that's fine. As long as the bottom is flat, it'll sit flat on the shelf. And that's what we want. So I'm going to give it about 1/8 of an inch gap, and I apologize if you can hear the dog drinking. She always waits until I'm recording to start drinking, and usually I stop recording when she starts drinking, but I'm on a roll, so I'm going to keep going. So we're going to keep removing the release tape. and laying the pieces down. I'm going to use some glue in the center here just to give it a little bit more support. This is wet glue, so it can cause a little bit of rippling effect. There we go. And here's that seam, so it's not quite in the center of the back, but that's a good spot for it. It's going to be covered by the matting in the back, which will help reinforce that weak spot in the cover. And here's the right spine. And I have really gone back and forth about whether I was going to do this as a white album or a black album, or if I wanted to pull out a different color of cardstock. The issue that I've got is that I've got a lot of 65-pound cardstock in different colors. I just don't have a lot of matching 110-pound cardstock. With black and white, it's real easy. I mean, there are some subtle differences in the 110-pound white and 65-pound white, but when everything's batted, it's real hard to notice. Whereas with some of the other colors, it would be a lot easier to notice the difference. All right, here's where I am a little bit unsure of what I'm going to do, because there's going to be a flap that comes around and it's going to extend off the right spine and help hold the whole thing closed. And I think what I want to do is leave a portion of this unattached. Let's see. I'm just going to kind of mock this up and fold that over. You know what, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this side so that I can see where this ends for sure. So now we kind of see where that edge is going to be. Okay, yeah, I could easily fold that in half, just about. So let's see here. Let's bring that about. I'm going to make a mark on the cardstock. About ½ inch inside the cardstock on in 2 spots. Remember, 2 dots mark a straight line. So or 2 points make a straight line. So I've brought the free edge of the paper over to the 2 dots that I just made. I'm going to crease all the way around. And I'm sorry, y'all are getting to listen to my thought process all the way through this, because this is something I have not done before. And I think I'm going to need some double-sided tape right in here. And probably some glue. You know what, I'm gonna do double-sided tape in a couple of places. So I want double-sided tape just right there, just next to just going to lay down a couple of strips of 1/4 inch double-sided tape. If you've got 1 inch double-sided tape, that would probably be even better for this application. I don't have any 1 inch double-sided tape. I'm also going to go right inside where that fold is, because I want a good sharp crease right there. Let's burnish that down. And I'm making contact here where the glue is first. Put that release paper back down. And now I'm going right here where that first strip of double-sided tape was. What I could do, I could cut away this section here. And look at me, I'm just going to go for it. I'll figure out if this is going to work later. And there's a little bit of double-sided tape right there, so I'm just going to kind of rip through that. I may regret that, but and let's do a shallow miter on that corner. Okay, that didn't add a whole lot of bulk there. I think that's going to be, I think that's going to work, especially after this is matted. So let me do that on the other side. So if you were going to do this, I need to actually fold that so that I make sure I'm following a straight line. If you're going to do this yourself and you're starting from the beginning and watching this all the way through to this point before starting on the cover, before folding this piece over, I would go ahead and cut this section out completely. Like, figure out where this fold line is going to be, as well as this fold line, and then make the cut. I'm going to do some math for y'all to calculate the binding piece, how wide it needs to be. So we've got a 2.5 inch spine. We're going to start there. So we've got 2.5 inches. Then we want about at least 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to go for a full inch on either side, just for extra security. So we're going to put plus 2 inches. And then this is going to be a 4-fin album. So each of those fins needs an additional inch. So that's going to be 4. So the binding is going to be 8.5 inches wide. So 2.5 plus 2 plus 4, 8.5 inches. And we're going to go with, these are going to be pocket pages, and I've not done pocket pages before. Knowing that before going into this, and knowing that the pages themselves are going to be 4 3/4 inches squared, I want to make the binding itself just a little bit shorter than the pages. So I'm going to go with 4 5/8. So it's going to be 8.5 by 4 5/8. And since this is 8.5 by 11 paper, letter size, I don't need to worry about the 8.5 inch cut. We're just going to make a 4 5/8 inch cut. And if this is your first time tuning in, or you've never heard me talk about this trimmer, I love this trimmer. It's a guillotine trimmer. It cuts through a lot of pages at one time. However, the marks up here are not exactly in the right spot. The marks down here are good. So I'm going to align this. If you have this trimmer, you may have the same problem. I'm going to align this with the marks down here. All right. For this album, we're going to start. We know we've got 1 inch that's going to be overlapping the side of the album, the front of the album or the back of the album. And we've got 1/2 inch gussets. So we're going to start at, we've got the 1 inch for the overlap plus the gusset. So we're going to score here. Then at 2 inches and 2.5 inches, that's going to be fin number 1. We start fin number 2 at the 3 inch mark, and 3.5 and 4. We start fin number 3 at the 4.5 inch mark, and 5 and 5.5. And if you have this scoreboard, that 5.5 inch score line is tricky because that's right where they folded this scoreboard. So we've got fin number 1, gusset, fin number 2, gusset, fin number 3, and the gusset goes to 6, and then fin number 4 is at 6.5 and 7. Then we've got space for the gusset to 7.5, and then 7.5 to 8 is where it's going to overlap the other side. So let's go ahead and fold and glue this together. Most of my albums, I would taper these edges. I'm not going to do that for this one since this is going to be a pocket page album. So I've grabbed this second score line and pinched and burnished that down. Now we're going to grab the 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th score line, pinch, burnish that down. The 8th score line, pinch, burnish that down. And the 11th score line, pinch, and burnish that down. And need to make sure that we burnish in both directions so that the binding will flex in both directions. And now we're going to glue these right here, flip it over in these little valleys, which is actually the underside of the peak. I'm going to place some glue, and I'm going to do 2 sections at a time. And when I try to get a little too aggressive with it, the glue on this section would end up drying first before I'm ready to work those sections. And we're going to burnish again just to make sure that we've got maximum glue contact. Let's go ahead and pull up the release paper on the left spine. This is the 2.5 by 5 inch spine section. Now we've got some good crease marks here and here. We want to position this kind of centered between the two. Just eyeball it and try to place it as level as you can. All right, for the record, this piece is 9 7/8 inch wide. So let's start with this section here. We're going to use wet glue. Before I get too much farther, I just remembered I need to add double-sided tape again, right here at the edge. All right, we're gonna let this dry for a little bit and then make sure that we don't have any bubbling on the mat here. And I wanna be careful how much I press down on this paper because it's just not as durable as the other brand. And it's starting to punch through right there, I can see. And we don't want that. All right, the very last step for completing the cover, we're gonna add the magnets to the closure. Well, I mean, we still have to do the matting. That's going to be one of the final videos that I do. I like how the process went for the Life is Better with a Dog album, so I think I'm going to do that again this time. So we're just going to add, you know what, I'm going to move this gently, gently. I'm going to put 2 magnets on here. I want it to be far enough away from all the edges that it'll be covered by the mats easily enough. So for these, what I'm going to do, I'm going to drop these on here, and I'm going to get a pen that it'll leave a mark on here. This is a Faber-Castell Pitt brush pen, so it'll transfer the ink there. But that ink will also transfer off. Now I'm going to position the cover where I want it and where I want it to be when it's closed. And I'm just going to press down. And now I've got, you can barely see them, but there are smudges right there. And that's going to be where those magnets go.